Good afternoon. I'm Jorge Urios, professor of EAE. Welcome to EAE Entrepreneur Experience, a program that addresses all aspects of entrepreneurship. I take this opportunity to extend a cordial greeting to all those who are joining for the first time, and especially to those who are seeing this cycle from different parts of the world. Who does a venture capitalist choose which startup to invest in? This is the fifth section of the program, and we'll focus on tell you about the structure of this type of funds, the investment strategies, and the aspects that are subject to analysis and when presented with a business opportunity. To talk about this topic, we have the presence of Ernesto Muñoz. He is partner of Fellow Funders and deal flow manager.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Ernesto. Before handing the floor to Ernesto, I invite you to participate in this session and ask your question through Twitter using the hashtag that appears on your, well, I don't know if here in the screens, EAE conference. I will be with the mobile, and well, probably at the end of the session, I will recollect all the questions and I will ask you.
Very good.
Well, we are going to start with a question about you, Ernesto.
Go ahead.
What words would you choose to introduce yourself?
Well, let's say I'm a very mature executive that's worked in multinationals all across the world, especially in consulting firms that have to do with market research and IT research. And the last few years I have dedicated my time to actually help SMEs and startups to, let's say, move to their...
Move forward?
No, not move forward only, but also move to prepare themselves to the route to market approach of their products. Basically, I'm also an entrepreneur. This is my 19th project in my life, and some of them have been successful, some of them not so much. I've lost a lot of money, I've made a little money, and let's say I've actually done both things at the same time, work for others and work for myself.
Okay, and why are you working on the finance, helping to the startups to finance the companies?
Why? Basically because startups are really the origin of good ideas, and those good ideas need funding and help to become good companies. Let's say that in between there are a lot of things that need to happen. But in reality, unfortunately, not all good ideas become startups, not all good ideas even become viable projects. But eventually some of them do, and some of those that actually happen to reach that stage actually do need a lot of help, and a lot of hand-holding, a lot of financial help, as well as other
financing
types.
Startups is usually one of the main issues of entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. But when is a good moment to start to worry about how finance my startup?
I think right from the beginning, I think a lot of, like I said, a lot of good ideas need a lot of financing just to become viable projects. I think an intelligent entrepreneur, and don't get me wrong when I say intelligent, I would say a forward-looking entrepreneur would look at the financial side of it, or the financing side of it, as a critical issue in their coming to the market approach. Basically, you need to prepare. You need to prepare the roadmap and write up all the critical issues that you're going to be facing. And one of them is the financing. Financing from the beginning is something you need to address very, very openly and very specifically. You cannot go about putting together a project without thinking about how you're going to finance it, because you're going to fail if that's what you do. You need to prepare yourself for the financing
Okay,
from day one.
At any moment, could be depends of the startup, depend of the projects.
I think even just getting the money together to set up the company, to incorporate the company, it's something you need to think about. Who are going to be the partners? Who's going to put the money? How I'm going to, where am I going to be based? Is this place better than the other? How am I going to, look for the developers that I need in order to put together the whole company, or the whole project, the whole idea. Money is the grease that makes all that actually move. Okay. Unless you have the money, you won't be able to move that machinery.
Okay, I understand. What is your company? What do you do? How do you define your company? What do you do?
What do we do? Fellow Funders is one of the few equity crowdfunding platforms which have a license from the CNMV, which is the Spanish official equity arm that depends that allows PDFs, which is the equity crowdfunding platforms, to actually allows them to actually collect money from others. Okay, the issue here is to have or not to have official seal that allows you to actually go out and sell a project and ask for financing and collect the financing for the project. Okay. So an equity crowdfunding platform, what we do basically is just prepare, let's say, the project in order to make the possible investors aware of it, of the weaknesses and the strengths, and we put up a price. We set a price for the project, for the company, and let's say we put together the whole structure that allows that operation, that project, to be presented to the investors, and then they decide whether they want to invest or not.
So I understand that Fellow Funders is one of the multiple alternatives that one entrepreneur has to finance the company?
One of the official or the right, let's say, one of the few possibilities that gives you branding, that gives you market status, that gives you the opportunity to actually tell the market about yourself. Because at Fellow Funders, we do a number of things for a startup before they get funded. First thing we do is we actually analyze the company. We pass them through what we call a scoring. Okay, the scoring is something that we have prepared ourselves. We have actually put together a number of algorithms that allows us to feel confident that if the company passes the scoring 65 out of 100, that company at least 65 out of 100, that company is viable from a financial point of view.
So that's cool from a point of entrepreneur, because at the end it's like a first screening before to make a presentation to other venture capitals, to other people.
Yeah, I think a startup needs to go through different stages before they can even approach a venture capital. I think probably we ourselves would ask the startup to have a minimum number of metrics that would allow us to qualify the company as a viable project for the platform before we actually allow it to be presented to the investors.
Imagine that I am an entrepreneur, I am launching my project right now. What is your advice? At the end, there are a lot of entrepreneurs. One of the doubts that they have is who can I contact? I contact typically the 3 Fs: family, friends, followers. Where do you recommend to start? Who are the actors in that first stage when I know that I need some finance? I
think the entrepreneur or the entrepreneurs have to be able to communicate their idea, their project, to those around let's say those in the comfort area. Okay, you have your friends, you have your family, people who believe in you, people who understand what you're trying to put together, people you have probably already shared with your ideas, that you have actually told them about your your thoughts, your innovation, whatever you're putting together in your head. You probably, the next thing you do is you put it on paper, and once you put it on paper, you start coming up with, what's one of the critical things I need to find is money. One of the second critical thing I need to do is find those who are going to put the money, unless I have it, which is a different story. But if I don't have enough or sufficient funds to actually put together the project up and running, I need to find those who can finance my project, who can help me finance my project. In that search, you should search not only for money, for financing, but you should also search for talent. Because when you're trying to put together a project, whatever it is, whatever segment, whatever sector it belongs to, you need to find those who are going to accompany you. Okay, so if you're going to be, you're talking about developing, I don't know, a TIC, an IT project, you need developers, you need an engineer, you need profiles that you probably already an engineer, you probably already someone who is sufficiently knowledgeable of that sector, of that project, of that area, but you still need to get others to come and help you finish developing that idea. Now that's probably the first search you have to do, is who is going to accompany me. Amongst those who might accompany you, there could be people who would put money. Okay, the 3 F's, the friends, fools, and family is great. It's a good way to start. But you need to convince them, and it's not only about money. It's, like I said, it's about bringing in talent from day one. Once you have that, the second thing is try to put that project underway. And to get the project underway, you need to start building your beta, your MVP, or whatever you want to call it, Producto Mínimo Viable, whatever you want to call it, which is really the minimum exercise that you need to do in order to present to your investors, to your friends, to your circle, okay, of those who are going to confide in you and put their money in your project. Once you got that underway, is when you start looking for business angels. Okay. And then the next step would be venture capitals, and so on. In between, you probably have to start looking for public funds. There are a lot of entities that you need to tap into, that you should tap into, because there is a lot of money available to help promote SME projects or startup projects. Apart from the usual incubators, or the number of entities that are happy to help you put together a good project. I think, like I said, in the case, for example, of looking for public money, there is a lot of, let's say, there is a lot to say about that, in the sense that business angels like to help projects who have already tapped different sources of financing. Different sources of financing being the 3 F's plus public entities, okay? Because at the end of the day, investors are investors, and they're not stupid, in the sense that if they can do without having to put the initial money and put their money once the project is validated, they will do so. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, if I'm an investor and I look at a project that has just been created, it's just been, it just pop up like a mushroom, I need to qualify a number of things. I need to qualify the team, I need to qualify the project itself, the segment it belongs to, the market is going to attack, whether it's whether it's something that it's a need to have versus a nice to have. So there are a number of things that I need to, let's say, tick in my box before I put my money. And one of those things is, have these guys already tapped into public money? Have they got an ENISA? Have they got, I don't know, money from their own local regional entities that support SMEs or startups? If they've done so, then I'll be a little bit happier to move forward and put some money in it. Basically because if, for example, you got a phase 1 of the H2020 program, which is a European Union program, then you have, as an investor, you have the peace of mind to know that that project has already been validated by a number of independent evaluators at European level. And they've already put 50,000 euros, for example, behind that project. So for me as an investor, it's 50,000 euros less that I have to put up. Plus, at the same time, the project has already been evaluated by others who are knowledgeable of that particular sector, or that particular matter, you know. So, like I said, investors are a particular breed in the sense that they do like to invest, put their money in projects that have some kind of track record. It doesn't matter how long. We, for example, at Fellow Funders, would only look at projects that have already validated an initial stage, okay? So they already have an MVP, which has been proven valid, and they have some metrics. I don't mind if they're losing money. They're bound to be losing money if they've only been around 6 months with a validated business model and with a validated MVP. But I want to see some metrics. I want to see that they've actually tried already and that they have been somewhat successful, okay? I don't mind how successful they've been, but I need to verify, to qualify them as successful.
But let me one thing, because meanwhile you're talking, I'm thinking, no? When you like entrepreneur, probably not you, the people who are
sure.
To us, they go to look for funds, to public funds. For me, that is a tool of double risk. One, because, okay, you get funds, probably, but at the end, I don't know if 50k, 100,000 euros, or whatever, if after 3, 6, 8 months, you don't get some traction, some metrics that you are referring, at the end, the investor can think that they are burned 50,000 euros and they don't have get any metrics.
I don't totally agree with you on that, because what an investor wants to see is that they're actually moving their project along. It's not so much as, you know, how far they've gone, but they're actually moving along. I think the worst thing that can happen is that, you know, I put money in a project and the project is stuck. It's not moving either forward or backwards. It's just not moving. So it's important. I mean, the European Union, for example, with their H2020 program, they put money in the phase 1, which is sunk money. It's free money in the sense that if they believe that the project is good enough, is innovative enough, they will put up to 50,000 in that project just to validate the MVP. Okay.
There are a lot of, I think, in public funds. Okay, that is true. That at the end, usually it's more easy than in innovative projects they put the money. But at the end, how many projects are innovative, but they don't get go right to the market?
Look, I would, Jorge, I will make two references. So I'll put forward two thoughts. Okay. Mm-hmm. One is that we have thousands of good ideas coming up every day. Everybody has a good idea coming up, you know, every other day, if not 10 a day. Okay, it's not so much about good ideas or innovative ideas. is how you manage to get those good ideas or innovative ideas to become realities. Okay, so it's not about putting a good idea on paper and making it sound good or bad. This legendary thing about, oh, they got 100 million out of a PowerPoint. Great. That might used to be the case a few years ago. I think it's just less and less nowadays. So good ideas on paper are just good ideas on paper. So the next thing is, how do I convert a good idea on paper on a good idea in reality?
That is where I wanted to arrive.
Okay, good. So how do you
to be interesting for investors like you.
Sure. So in order to make someone like me really interested in a good idea on paper, I need to qualify that good idea. How do I qualify a good idea? Well, I would ask you, the first thing is, have you had enough financing in order to put together a good MVP? Okay, so like I said before, it's all about you demonstrating, you as an entrepreneur with a good idea, demonstrating everybody else that you can actually convert a good idea into a reality. First step is do it better. Okay, you do an MVP, a minimum viable product. And once you've done an MVP, you start getting backing for it. Okay, and when I say getting backing is you start obtaining people's interest. You start getting people that want to support you, that want to invest in your idea, that want to help you. Okay, so at that particular point is when you start trying to, let's say, close the circle of talent around you. You need to start getting good people around you. This is very important for entrepreneurs in general. You cannot do everything on your own. You need to build a team around you. Unless you have a good team around you, you might have a great idea that flows on paper, that flows even on an MVP, but it won't flow much further.
What is a good team?
A good team for me is a balanced team of profiles. Okay, so if it's a pure technical project, you need a very good technical team. Normally is more than one person. Okay, the best projects I've seen, technically speaking, are normally composed of at least two good engineers. And when I say two good engineers, is two chaps or two ladies who've had a good experience in terms of previous experience, and that arrive at a good idea after having worked for others or at least tried a few other times in different startups before they actually come up with their good idea. Okay, that good idea is a validated idea, and once you have that in place, like I said, you start building around that. So you need someone who heads the commercial side, someone who heads the marketing side. And people say, well, you can have a commercial and marketing. No, it doesn't flow. I mean, if it's going to be something that you need to sell online, or you need to have a front page, which is your web page, you need to have some marketing behind it. Okay, and you need to have someone really good at digital marketing or whatever. You need to have some good admin people. Internally, you need a good finance guy, a good finance person who can help you build that from the scratch. I see a lot of projects that probably their weakest point is the financing. Why is the financing? Because financially speaking, they are a non-entity. They haven't got anybody inside the company that even knows how the numbers work. When it comes to look for outside financing for investors, the first thing they're going to look at is your numbers. And if you haven't got if you're not proficient with your own numbers, you have a problem. So whenever I sit in front of an entrepreneur and I ask him, what did you sell last month? And they come back and say, well, I don't know, not exactly. Well,
how are you doing?
That's a problem, because that person is not really aware of your own metrics. The metrics is what you live and die for if you're a startup. Okay, so for me, that's a team. It needs to be, like I said, going back to your question, a good balance of profiles, depending on what you're doing. If it's agro, then you need a different set of people than if you're just a pure technical hardware or software. It would depend, So again, it's always a good balance. That balance can be achieved not only with inside people, i.e. people that you bring into your structure, new partners, but can be also outside partners. So if I need to have a team of hardware specialists or hardware manufacturers, you don't need to bring him into your company. You can just subcontract that part. You probably need to have them as partners because it's going to cost you a lot of money otherwise. But you don't need to bring them into the team. So you can have internal and external teams working together. Of course, once you start growing, you need to start bringing everything together. And if you try to remain with an external part-time team, it doesn't normally work very well, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you for your reply. We was talking about after what happened after I tap public funds.
Mm-hmm.
Next step, what kind of investors? What is my next? And that moment is when you told me, okay, you need a team, you need to validate that MVP.
Mm-hmm.
What more will I need if I need funds or I will introduce my project?
I think it's at that stage is where you probably start looking for business angels, which is the figure of a business angel has actually, let's say, migrated or shifted over the years. Okay, nowadays business angels are kind of a different breed than what they used to be 10 years ago. Nowadays, business angels are probably a lot more professional. They don't go so much by instinct as by being more elaborate in the way they work out the possible deals. They team up. There are a lot of associations of business angels nowadays. They work in groups. They don't like doing so alone. I'm talking in general terms. So business angels, you need to attract, if possible, a business angel or a group of business angels that can help you move further and forward and faster. And the way to do so is by the definition of business angel is someone who has a special interest in a special sector, in a special type of company, because they are either knowledgeable about it or because they have an expertise in it. Okay,
the market,
that particular market or that particular type of whatever. And normally you're going to tap into business angels who can not only put money but can actually help you move forward. Okay, so either with contacts or possible partnerships and so on. So the beauty of a business angel is that you kind of buy a lot more than just money, okay? That kind of association, because it normally happens at the beginning of when you are starting up, is a dangerous situation. It can work very well, it can work very bad, okay? So
why?
Why? Because the expectations of both are normally not aligned, okay? So the entrepreneur normally thinks that the business angel should collaborate more and put more, and the business angel normally thinks that his or her money should go further, okay? So normally there is also a kind of over control by the business angel that is not normally well assimilated by the entrepreneur, okay? So, like I said, it's a balance. Now, if you can actually dance that dance, okay, the balance, if you achieve a good balance, normally that relationship can work a long time, okay? And the business angel is, depending on who that person is, could also be a good reference to attract other investors, okay? Go ahead.
Typically, in a lot of forums, we talk about business angels, where an entrepreneur can find business angels.
Yeah, good question.
Because usually
it's like I said.
How do you find?
How do you find a good business angel? They said that the best business angel was your father, you know, and that's before he actually lost all his money in the previous projects, and now you just have to start looking for somebody else. Now, seriously, it's not easy. I think because of what you just said, because that mix, it's difficult to have a good mix from day one. So there's a learning curve by both sides that needs to be addressed. Time is of essence as well. So, you know, there are a number of variables that can actually push together two people or can separate them very fast. So looking for that ideal mix of that person who can actually bring to the table what you're missing or what you don't have yet. It's a good exercise in searching for the needle in the haystack. Okay, so the biggest issue I would say is, where do I start looking for them? Like I said, unfortunately, there isn't a list of business angels you can just call up. Okay, well, there are, but don't call them up. Okay, it's not a good idea. The best thing to do is probably go to the different events where they get together, tap into associations, tap into clubs. There are a lot of clubs of business angels nowadays, and they even set up their own events. Okay, so there are events that you can apply to. You can send your deck, your PowerPoint, and ask them to evaluate it. And if your project sounds good enough or smells good enough, they might call you up. You might become one of the finalists, and you might be invited to even do a pitch. That's the usual way of how most entrepreneurs nowadays, how most startups try to get in touch with business angels. Another way of doing that is actually, I don't know, look around your colleagues and find out who is in touch with which business angel. Okay, and the best thing to do is to get a reference from another entrepreneur that has already been in touch with X number of business angels. Word of mouth is probably the best business card, you know, in those moments. Trying to tap into a business angel out of the blue, cold calling. Hey, I've got this marvelous project. This is the PowerPoint. They probably won't even take your call. They probably won't even answer you. You need to have an introductory reference. Okay, I've been in touch with so and so. That person has actually asked me to contact you, and here you are. At Fellow Funders, we have a number of some of our advisors, belong to the startup world, and one in particular, for example, Jesus Alonso. He was the founder of restaurantes.com, and I think also coches.com. I'm not sure about that one. But he gets a lot of introductory calls, and he gets a lot of decks and a lot of PowerPoint presentations just sent to him. As, can you please just have a look at it, and if you think it's interesting, just let me know who I can get in touch with. So they're not even asking him for money or asking him to do anything, but if you find it interesting enough, just let me know who I should contact. I think that's a good approach. I think trying to tap into people who might be good references for your project could be a good way of doing that. But again, don't forget that you need to have a little bit more than just a PowerPoint presentation. PPT is great, but
in that stage, you should have some metrics or of any kind. I don't know what.
I would say that at that stage, you've probably just come out of your 3F's founding round, and you should at least be able to show something. I mean, you can't just, sometimes, I've seen projects that they haven't even tapped into their 3F's, and it's like, well, if your father won't put €1,000 in your project, why should I put €1,000 in your project? So those are questions that they're just logical questions that you're going to get asked by someone who you're asking to put money into your project.
At the end is to have the credibility of some
Sure.
people around you or government.
The trust. I think it's more trust. Do they trust you with their money? Yes or no? There are cases where the entrepreneur has very clear in his or her mind that this is where I want to go, this is how I'm going to get there, and this is what I need. And they have that roadmap very well defined. I admire those chaps that actually have the roadmap really truly defined from day one. Of course, we all know that as you move forward, there are going to be a lot of things that are going to change and shift, and you're going to have to pivot a lot of times. It's not going to be that single straight, nice growth line. But having said that, in those cases, you still need to have an open mind, a very flexible mind when it comes to who do I want to bring in, who can help me move forward. I think business angels fulfill a great role, the same way that venture capitalists do, the same way that investment funds do, and so on. Everybody has his own role in this process. Is how you tap into that role, how you put all those pieces together that allows you to move forward or allows you to move faster or slower.
Yeah, because in this stage, at the end, one of the issues or the problem is how many investors I have in the team, no? Because at the end,
That's right.
with the 3Fs, with the business angels, how many business angels?
That's right.
How do you manage that?
How do you manage all that? It could become a real problem. I mean, I've seen projects where they have so many investors already, and they're still at the business angel round, and they haven't even moved further than that, and they already have an issue just handling all that. I think, again, it's all about the initial stage I was mentioning earlier at the beginning, is how you plan the financing that you're going to have to do in order to reach the stage you want to reach. And that planning is from day one. When that happens, is because normally the financing hasn't been planned from day one. It's just been sketchy, from jumping from one rock to another without any clear path as to where I want to go and how I want to get there. If you plan very, very well right at the beginning, you probably know who you want as investors, who you want as partners, who do you want as business angels. If you already have that, I know it's a lot to ask, but that's why it's important to verify that you are a qualified entrepreneur, okay? When I see a project with those issues, it's because the entrepreneur is just not good enough. Or hasn't learned enough. Let's say it hasn't learned enough, or has not learned enough quickly enough, okay? Which is different issues, unfortunately, same result. So it's a lot, like I said, it's a lot about knowing what you need, and in order to know what you need to be well advised right at the beginning. I think that the worst mistake that you can make is not to have any or despise the advice at the beginning and try to look for it right at the middle of the project. Not at the end, because you probably won't reach the end, but right at the middle of the project. Because by then, there are so many things that you need to change that you probably won't be able to do so. So why do a lot of projects fail? Basically because they haven't planned well enough at the beginning. Even though the idea was a great idea, even though it was a great innovation, even though it was a great team, they just didn't plan well enough. So the cap table is just not good enough, the financing is crap, the partners are the wrong ones, and you're even based in the wrong place, and all of a sudden everything is a problem. And why is everything a problem halfway through? Because you didn't plan well at the beginning.
At the end, to choose the partners or the business angels or the investors that you involve in the project is a key success it's an element of for the success of the startup.
It's a very high percentage of success or failure comes with that in particular. I think most of the entrepreneurs don't pay enough attention to the beginning of how you should start the startup, how you should start putting together everything. They spend a lot of time thinking about the idea and how to put the idea underway and how to get everything right and great, but you forget the obvious.
Yes.
And sometimes it's the obvious, most of the time it's the obvious that really counts. The obvious issues, the obvious needs are what most people don't plan for. And those obvious issues that someone is going to point at them halfway through is when you start looking red like the board that you have right there. It's obvious that when someone is trying to help you, you have to at least have an open mind to understand that this person is trying to advise me on something that they've probably seen 1,000 times before. So for me, it's not about, for us at Fellow Funders, it's not about qualifying or not qualifying projects. It's about validating whether the people have done a good enough job at that stage or not. And if they have, it's easier to assume that they're going to carry on doing a good job.
And in your experience, Ernesto, how many people, how many investors in this early stage would you recommend to an entrepreneur who is launching his project?
What they should be doing? I would say that the first thing a good entrepreneur should qualify is what are the chances I have of obtaining sufficient funds to get this project underway? That would be the first question that they should present themselves with. Okay.
So first question is, don't worry about how many people, if not, how many funds do you need in this?
How much do I need to get this underway? Do I need 1,000? Do I need 100,000? Do I need 20? Do I need 50? Because that will allow you to look for, the money. I mean, if I need, 40,000 and I'm 30 years old, ENISA Jóvenes Emprendedores can give you 40,000 just like that. Okay, it's debt, but debt that you only have to start repaying once you start making money. So there are a lot of little things like that you need to plan, okay? And you need to plan in day one. I mean, if I see a project coming to me 2 years later, and they haven't even tapped into an ENISA, or they haven't even tapped into a regional support fund, for me, it's like, well, you haven't done your homework. You haven't really done your homework. You're putting an extra strain on me as an investor to put money that others should have put to help you. Okay? In the first place, your 3 Fs, for example.
Could you recommend us some public funds that actually
can help entrepreneurs? I'm not an expert on that. There are consultancy firms, I tell you, that are real experts in finding money for entrepreneurs. I would say that just ask different entities. Look through internet, search through internet. You're bound to find dozens, if not 100, different ways of funding yourself, your project. Depends on your age, depends on what region you are from, depends on the sector. There are funds, serious funds as well. I mean, funds with a lot of grant money behind them that can help you finance your project very well. Okay, it's elaborate. You need to fill a lot of paperwork and you need to probably wait a lot of time. but you will get that eventually. So before you tap into that, you need to get money to get the project underway. So unless you got the money in your bank account, you need to ask your 3Fs to help you fund it. So you get your 3Fs to help you fund it. Once you got that underway, you start simultaneously looking for public funds, okay? There are consultancy firms all around us that can help you find or prepare the paperwork for ENISAs, for Emprendetours, for SABICs, depends on your sector. You're bound to find a lot of public money to help you. On top of that, you have a lot of incubators, okay? And okay, you have to show that your project, at least on paper, is good enough. But there are a lot of incubators out there. Every large company has got an incubator firm, okay? Repsol has his own, Endesa has another, Telefónica has another. Every large multinational has an incubator. There are a lot of also incubators adscribed to regions, okay? So you have in Madrid, you have, in fact, el Ayuntamiento de Madrid funds viveros de Madrid. Los viveros de Madrid, yeah, there are loads of them. I don't know how many there are, probably a couple of dozens in Madrid alone. So, like I said, there is a lot of public support out there. You just need to search for it. I'm not going to do the searching, okay? Me as an investor, I'm not going to, if you come and see me, oh, I want this, I want that, or I'm just going to ask the questions, and if I don't see that these people haven't done their homework, I'm just going to point the finger and say, well, start looking for it, because it's your job. It's not my job is to actually qualify you once you've done your work.
So after to make my homework, to find public fund, to find business angels, that is the moment where I arrive to a company like Fellow Funders or to like a crowdfunding. In what stage?
I think, like I said earlier, we would qualify projects that are already at the, let's say, early mature stage, okay? Earlier stage, but with a mature product, okay? Or a mature service, meaning that the MVP has been validated, they have an initial commercial roadmap already, or activity already underway. They already have some metrics, okay? I've sold 10, I've sold 15 or 20 or 100, and not to my cousin, not to my brother, but people I don't know, okay? Because that's another typical thing that normally happens, okay? I've already, sold 100,000, great. To whom have you sold that? Oh, friend of mine, great, thank you very much, that doesn't count. So once that has happened, once that has been, already confirmed and validated, I would say that is when you start looking for serious money, okay? Serious money meaning either just, venture capitals, or venture capital is still, I would say, they come at a bit later stage, not so early in the process. I would say crowdfunding would be an ideal way of actually getting some financing at that stage. Once you got 6 months of metrics, fellow funders could be a good option, like I imagine any other, a few other equity crowdfunding platforms. But like I said, you need to have something to show. You can't just ask for money without having anything to show.
What are the advantages to introduce my business plan, idea, a project to a crowdfunding platform in general?
I think in general, I would say that if you get a crowdfunding platform to actually propose your project for financing, you're going to get two good things out of it. Number one is that you get validated by an independent entity, which in our case would be fellow funders validating that your scoring and your valuation is real, okay? I think that's probably worth your while, just that alone. Secondly is that once the project gets promoted, once the project gets publicized, and open to the investor community, then what you get is a lot of very, very good branding, at least with fellow funders, and you get a lot of brand recognition because it gets promoted throughout the social networks, and that allows you to reach people all over the place. In the case of fellow funders, we have investors from 44 different countries around the world, and thousands, dozens of thousands of users and registered investors and so on. So potentially you get a lot of free publicity, and you get a lot of, I would say, status out of that. Okay, that your project has been, let's say, qualified.
Okay.
100% of our projects that get published in our platform, for example, get funded. And I think over 90% of them get funded over 100%, up to 125, which is what the law allows us to do.
That's cool. And why fellow funders and not other crowdfunding?
Why fellow funders?
Not why fellow funders, sorry for the question. What are the difference between the different crowdfunding platforms?
There are a number of different crowdfunding platforms. There are,
at the end of the point of the entrepreneur, why I choose one or another one?
Well, equity crowdfunding itself, there are only a number of platforms officially validated with the CNMV stamped and approval. I think there's only 11, if I can remember correctly. That's for equity crowdfunding. There are others that have real estate funding, lending funding. So there are a number of crowdfunding platforms that do other things apart from equity crowdfunding as such. When I say equity crowdfunding, meaning that all the funding that a startup gets is against equity. Okay, equity meaning part of the company. Okay, this is the other types of crowdfunding. How do you say that? Recompensa and.
It's for products only.
That's right. That it's not only for products, but it allows you, for example, to fund production. Okay, or allows you to receive money to pay for the day-to-day activity of the company. Okay, so there are a lot of lending platforms that have arrived at that particular stage, at the sector, and there are other types of ONG, okay, non-governmental agencies that also get funded through crowdfunding. So equity crowdfunding itself is probably the most regulated part of the equity crowdfunding, the crowdfunding sector, and we do have a lot of oversee or control by the authorities when it comes to how we handle the let's say the publicity, how we handle the promotion, how we handle the information. Okay, so there is a lot of control over that, and it's a good way. I'm totally for it because it's a great way to instill confidence and trust in that the system works. Okay, so I would ask everybody to keep an eye on that because there are a lot of, I wouldn't say pirate, but they are pirate platforms which haven't got the official approval, and you really are taking a huge risk when you invest through those platforms. And there are a lot of them out there which are still, acting or operating legally.
Probably at the end there is a part legal or procedimental, and another one could be typically the contact, the exposure of the crowdfunding platform to the possible other investors, to the market or whatever. No?
Sure. Yeah.
That is the idea. Imagine that. I see your platform or somebody talk about fellow funders, what is my way inside of Fellow Founders, what I have to do to introduce.
I think you probably need to do two things. One is to send us your deck, your presentation, your corporate presentation, describing what you do, what are your aims, what do you need, and secondly,
do you have a preferable method to send that through the website?
You do it through the
through
website. You do it through the website. You can actually do it through the website. You just fill up a number of forms and you just can upload all the documentation. When you were asking earlier about what are the differences between our platform and the others, I would say the main difference is that we have a very particular way of actually working through the projects before we actually decide to help them or not, okay, or to actually publish them or not. And that particular way of doing things is that we conduct a specific scoring system that nobody else does, and which is a proprietary scoring system and an evaluation system, okay, based on that as well. The scoring system takes into account a number of things that are very particular, you know, in terms of, you know, we evaluate things like the team, we evaluate things like the scalability of the project, the market itself that it belongs to, etc., etc. Okay, I'm not going to tell the whole
the whole screen,
the whole sauce of what we actually cook or how we cook it. But we do, let's say we do an in-depth analysis of the project itself. And once we've done that is when we ask the project to sign our contract, and then we move forward with it.
Is quantitative, that analysis is qualitative, is both?
I think it's both. It takes into account a number of things that have to do with the risk itself that the company has to assume over the coming years. And of course it has to do with things like I said earlier, the team. It's extremely important for us to evaluate the team properly and well enough.
Okay. If I imagine there is an interview with the entrepreneurs team.
Sure. What like I was saying earlier, you need to upload all the documents, all the information. Once you do that, we qualify for an interview or not. And if we qualify for an interview, we ask the entrepreneur to come and present to us. Then we, if it's good enough, we prepare a dossier of the project and present it to our own operational committee. If the operational committee decides to support it, then we move forward with the contract and the paperwork, and then we get everything underway. We are very strict when it comes to the legal part of it, okay, like partner agreements, legal status of the company. We analyze all that. We do a short due diligence and all that, and we don't publish any projects that haven't gone through that with a clean sheet.
How long is the process between I submit the project through the website
until you publish it?
Yes.
If everything goes fast enough, probably 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. So it's more or less weekly from each side.
It's like I said, if everything goes well, it's 4 to 6. It can go up to 3 months. It can go, it can go either way. It's never below. I would say never below 4 weeks.
Okay. And if the entrepreneur or if you reject the project, do you provide feedback why we are not interested or in this, or do you have to change this back to submit in 3 weeks? This kind of feedback?
Yeah, I know. I would say the is when we see the project has merit enough, but it's probably too green for us, too early for us to help them. We tell them there are a lot of projects that what we try to do is encourage them to improve their metrics, before we can actually move forward. And we try to help them and I wouldn't say coach them, but yeah, some sort of coaching we do with some of the projects. In reality, if the project has merits enough, we try to help them at least come to the stage where we can actually move forward with them. If we see the project too unaligned, too far off the mark, we just tell them that sorry, but we cannot help you. Do we give them feedback? It depends. If it's a project that has come to the stage of an interview, yes. If it comes to the stage where it's just the documents have been uploaded to the platform and it's just sketchy or not good enough, we just you just receive an email saying thank you very much, but we are not going to be able to help you at this stage. Okay. If they come for an interview, yes. I mean, I'm more than happy to provide them feedback on the go. Okay, sometimes it's well taken, sometimes it's not so well taken.
So I understand in this stage, if I need some, or the entrepreneur needs some coaching, some mentoring from the side to prepare the homework for the platform, I understand that this is free from your side.
Yeah, we try. We have a marketing team at Fellow Funders that would actually help an entrepreneur project that has been accepted and signed. We actually help them prepare video documents, videos, documentation, different types of documentation. We actually prepare our own valuation report. Okay, so we support them all along the way when it comes to how the project is going to be presented to the public through a web page. Okay, so then that's free. Yes, I mean, we provide them with that support and that help free of charge.
And like entrepreneur, can I be into crowdfunding platform? Do you allow me?
No, by law you can only be in one equity crowdfunding platform at a time. I think you need at least 6 months between rounds.
Okay.
Okay, you cannot have two simultaneous. You can do one and finish it, and then start with another one.
So first is to choose what crowdfunding platform.
Choose well. I think it's important. Yes, I think it's important. We pride ourselves that we are very strict, but we are very professional, in the sense that we are strict, but if we say no, we try and like I said earlier, we try to give feedback. If we say yes, we try to support you all the way. So, like I said earlier as well, 100% of the projects that are approved and are funded through our platform get funded and get in most of the cases they get over 100% of the funding that they require. Cool. So it's that professional.
So in that stage, from the approval from your side, so you made public the project.
Uh-huh.
How long is the?
Once we publish the project, it depends. I mean, we've had it really depends on the project, and it also depends on when you're launching it. I've had cases where we launched, for example, in August this year, a project that took us less than 2 weeks to complete a financing round of 190,000 euros, and other times you try to close 150,000 and it takes you 2.5 months. It just depends on the project. Okay. Normally what we do is we try to promote the project as much as we can. We do a lot of investor days. We conduct about 1 investor day every 6 weeks. Our next one is next week, by the way, or this week, I can't remember. This is terrible for me not to know that, but unfortunately I'm not in charge of it. But we conduct, like I said, investor days where we ask our ongoing projects to actually present to our investors. And we try to get them in as many events as we can to also promote the projects themselves. We try to fulfill two objectives. One is not only to obtain investors to fund the project, but also to promote the project itself, okay? To promote the service or the product that they're trying to sell into the market.
And thinking like a lot of entrepreneurs, how do you see the typical question, but one of the issues or one of the advantage, depends like you see, is that exposure to a lot of people, a lot of investors, but many times the entrepreneur has is the column. This is my treasure, and I don't want to show how much money do I need or whatever. What do you say in that?
You have to be transparent. I think the only way to approach the market if you're asking for funds is to be very transparent. If you hide anything, the investors are going to point it at you very, very quickly. They are not going to feel happy. They're not going to feel confident. They're not going to trust you, basically. Like I said earlier, it's a matter of trust. If for whatever reason they decide that you're not trustworthy, you're dead. You're dead in the water. Nobody's going to put money in your project. Don't forget that investors also move a lot by word of mouth, okay? So the reference is for the good and for the bad. If there is a bunch of investors that decide to back up your project, you can go a long way. If for whatever reason they decide that, this project the guy is not trustworthy, I don't know, I've just seen the two founders fighting with each other or disagreeing with each other in public. Oh my goodness, all of a sudden you lose trust. You lose trust that team is going to work. You lose trust that the guys are going to be able to reach, all the ambitious objectives that they've set for themselves. Trust is critical for me. So,
and is there a minimum ticket? What is the recommended ticket?
In the case of fellow funders, 100,000 is the minimum ticket that we promote. We can go up to 500,000. That will be the maximum that I would say it's a good idea to do through equity crowdfunding.
And how do you group to all investors? Could you tell us about how is the process? How imagine that I get my investment, 200,000, 2,100 euros. What happened the next day?
Okay, so normally, again, I'm going to be talking about fellow funders itself. At fellow funders, we have the average investor invests around 2,300 euros per investment. Okay, that's the average investor. Which means that you probably need 85 for 200,000. Okay, that would be the average deal. Now, how do we do that? Is we try to get all the investors adhere to the partners agreement. Okay, now there is a clause that syndicates all the investors, which means that all the minority investors become one, in the sense that they are represented by one elected investor amongst them, okay? And that allows the entrepreneur, the startup, to have one investor representing 60 or 70 or 80 or 40, whatever the number, okay? Normally, that investor that represents that minority group is elected onto the board of directors, onto the board of the advisory board.
How do you make it?
How do I like that?
No, how do you make it? How do you choose who from 20 investors is the member of the board of the startup?
Normally, what do we recommend? That if amongst that group there is a business angel, that business angel should be chosen as the lead investor. and the lead investor is the one that represents the minority investors. Okay, that's what we normally recommend. Again, it could be that amongst the minority investors there are large investors, and they invest more than the average investor, and they decide to go alone, and they don't want to be syndicated with the rest. Then fair enough. But minority investors are generally asked to become syndicated, because there are some entrepreneurs. It's up to the entrepreneur. I mean, if you decide to have your investors syndicated, you say so. If you don't want to have your investors syndicated, you say so.
That would be crazy.
I would say yes. I mean, if you have 80 or 90 investors each calling you every day and asking for this or that, it could be a bit of a
What are the metrics of the last week?
Yeah, well, unless you have someone fully dedicated to cope with investor questions, yes, it would be very draining on your resources.
Okay, because at the end, do you have a typical agreement with the startup? So the question is, do you make a different agreement for different startups depending of who are the investors?
No. The partners agreement, the shareholders agreement. Okay, shareholders agreement. It's the same for every. We set up the same. We recommend that they use the same agreement. Is the one that we put in front of the entrepreneur, and is the one that has been validated by all the previous projects that we have taken or undertaken. For us, the shareholders agreement is, let's say, is the way to help the promoter work with the investors, okay? And it's a way for the investors to feel supported, vindicated, and helped and safeguarded, when it comes to a small investment, okay? So it's reciprocal, okay? It should work both ways. You should help the entrepreneur move forward. Don't have any stones in the wheels, any issues with the minority shareholders. And the shareholders, they with that kind of agreement in place, they feel sufficiently safeguarded that the founders are not going to make any wrong decisions, and if they do so, that they are kept under control thanks to the agreement.
But to think in weakness, okay?
Go ahead.
One of the weakness could be the no flexibility to make a agreement with the investor ad hoc, because at the end, when I am applying to a crowdfunding platform, this is the typical agreement. I imagine that you could change one paragraph, perhaps, or nothing, but usually not more. Meanwhile, when you are talking with probably I don't know if with a venture capital, because they have his own terms, and it's difficult to change to do. But that could be the weakness of all this.
Okay, two things which are important. Shareholders agreement only work as long as the company is not listed. Once it gets listed, shareholders agreements go out of the window, number one. So it's an agreement that regulates the relationship between the investors and the founders during that period, okay, between the startup process and the I'm already grown up and now I want to sell, or now I want to become a listed company. In between, anything can happen, okay? Yes, to give you a short answer to your question. Is there a weakness there? There could be a weakness, yes. There could be a weakness in the sense that if the shareholders agreement is not strong enough, new shareholders, new investors with strength, i.e. meaning that they are prepared to put a lot of money in a new round, financing round, could demand that the shareholders agreement be changed to their whatever, to their interests. A good shareholders agreement in place from day one, to which every new investor adheres without changing a word of it, becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay, so if 100% of the agreement is supported by 100% of the shareholders, and a new investor comes in that wants to take over 20% of the company, is the other 80% that has to agree or not to agree whether they want to change what has regulated the agreement that has regulated their relationship for the last X number of years. So unless, like I said, unless the new investor is very strong and is prepared to put a lot of money into that new financing round, there shouldn't be any need to change it. Okay, so is there a weakness? Yes. If the shareholders are not feeling strong enough to enforce it, yes.
And I'm thinking, what happened when at the same time in that round, any entrepreneur are negotiating or are in a crowdfunding platform like you, and in the meantime is negotiating with a venture capital, a seed round, or could be possible, or imagine that we have other investor in that stage, and at the end is a combination of the money from the crowdfunding platform and small VC.
Normally, they all have to adhere to the same shareholders agreement. Okay, meaning that you not only do the financing round under the same terms, but part of those terms are precisely the shareholder agreement terms. Okay, so it's not only I'm getting my investment is going to buy me so much equity, but at the same time, I want a different set of rules. No, if you are financing or putting your money in the same financing round as everybody else, you're going to get the same treatment as everybody else. So the shareholders agreement has to be the same for everybody. At that stage, like I said, it depends on how much that particular investor is going to put into the company. That might require a bit of flexibility on the part of the existing shareholders. But if the existing shareholders feel strong enough, why should they change it? I mean, it's a matter of, these are the set of conditions that we are presenting you with. You either take them or you don't. And if you take them, you can invest. If you don't, you don't invest. Simple as that. Normally, in the case of fellow funders, normally we don't have any issues with that. We could have issues with pre-existing shareholders agreement and trying to adapt those pre-existing shareholders agreements to what we ask them to sign, or the new agreement that we believe is more, let's say, enforceful and it's more balanced than and we've proven that this is the case because we've done already a number of financing rounds with a good number of companies, and every single time that we have had venture capitals or business angels, large business angels or large professional investors coming into the round, they have adhered to the proposed shareholders agreement without any question. So the shareholders agreement that we put in front of the investors and in front of the founders is a very well balanced and very well accepted agreement as it is.
Great, Ernesto. Well, I am seeing that is the time going to be in 10 minutes. Last question, and I will question to the room.
Go ahead.
Fellow Founder is part of a financial group, services group. What other services offer to the companies?
Okay. Yeah, we have actually evolved to become kind of a 360 degrees company in which we provide, initially we provide equity crowdfunding through fellow funders. We also have, and we haven't talked about it, we have a tool which is called Fair Value, and Fair Value will be launched early next year. And it's an automatic tool that allows startups to be evaluated, and to come up with a valuation automatically. You just introduce your data, and your data allows the system, allows our tool to actually give you a price, a valuation price of what we believe should be worth, your company should be worth. So we are growing the range, the suite of services that we offer, both up and down. And down meaning Fair Value covers that, let's say, initial stage that I have this great idea. I've just done my 3Fs round, and I don't really know how much I should be. My company should be worth, or how much I should be asking in order to do the initial business angels round, and I'm not big enough to ask for help from a crowdfunding platform or from a professional entity. So let me go through Fair Value and get at least some sense and some logic into what I think it might be worth. So that's an initial, let's say, stage. Then we have fellow funders. Then we have what we call a financial boutique, which is called Velero Fonte Capital, which basically does projects. We undertake projects which are much larger. Okay, so projects that require financing, that require M&A, that require business support from the financial, legal, or other aspects. So like I said, it covers the range of services that we are not able to provide the market with at the fellow funder stage. The next stage that we have is another company called PMS that will help larger companies, and I'm talking about companies with revenues over 10 million and so on, to actually start looking at different opportunities to be listed in the market. Okay, either Euronext, Access Plus, or MAB, or AIM even. Mm-hmm. So we have PMS actually allows us to provide that range of services to larger companies, and also we are Asesor Registrados, which allows us to act as the intermediary between the market and the company. So we fulfill, like I said, a 360-degree role that undertakes very early stage companies to very mature companies looking for stardom in the system, being able to become listed and become really known entities in the financial market. So that's what we try to do. We try to help companies, basically.
Very, very interesting, Ernesto. You are fulfilled with a lot of work. I believe, no?
Thank you. Yeah, I think fellow funders is a good what can I say, window
partner to go ahead. No?
It's a great partner to start your startup. I think that would be the initial way to do so.
Okay. Do you have somebody in the room has any question for Ernesto?
Well,
go ahead.
I'm Victor. I'm a finance student here, and I'd like to know, despite of all the tools you told already, do you have any main indicator, despite of the beta, as you don't have much information about the company, and in case you have much information about the company, as the companies that want to be listed, which are the main indicators, like liquidity and management at all?
I think it would depend on the stage in which the company is. If the company is at a very, very early stage, I think, like I said earlier, the team for me would be a critical point to look at. Like I said, I think the idea, believe it or not, it can be great, but for me it's secondary. I think any good team would make any good idea a great business, or would be able to make it a great business. I think it's the compendium of everything. Is the team, the idea, the financing, the sector, the scalability of it, the partners. Everything is critical. The whole compendium is what makes it a great business eventually, but not necessarily, because anything in that compendium can go wrong at any time. And like I said earlier, good ideas are extremely difficult to convert into great businesses. Okay, I think you have to realize that there is no, what can I say? There is no real formula, or there is no real mix of what should be more or less important. I can just give you an insight into the whole compendium of things that are important, but what is more critical, it would depend on the moment. At the beginning, the team. Halfway through, the financing. At the end, the execution. Do they have good salespeople? Sometimes I come across projects that have developed something great, but it's 15 engineers in the team and one bad salesman that doesn't even speak English. What do I recommend? I recommend that they fire half the team and acquire half. And the guy would come back and say, you know what? I don't want to get rid of half the team because they're my friends. They've been my colleagues for the last 3 years. How do I rate that project? Probably as a failure within the next 24 months. Why? Because they're not pivoting, they're not moving in the direction they should at that stage. Up till then, what they have done was great. But from that stage onwards, you need to move in a different direction. And you need to allocate resources in a different way. And you need to start looking at different things. So the criticality of the team at that moment is not what you have, but what you don't have. So like I said, sometimes it's for a startup, it's like for any other company. I think the great challenge is how do you become a great businessman, woman, and forget about being a startup. So it's hard to say, but the success or the failure comes with change, and how fast you change, and choosing the time to change things is critical to the success or the failure of the project. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, totally. What about the companies that want to be listed? For example, they're medium or big companies already. So what kind of, the beta is very important, of course, but liquidity and all the indicators are as well.
I think companies that want to be listed at the stage where they have decided that they need to be listed, they have to answer themselves probably a couple of questions. One of them, the most important one, is why do I want to be listed? Do I want to be listed because I want to be recognized by the market as a player? Do I want to be listed because I want to give liquidity to my shareholders? Do I want to be listed because I want everything? I want to be recognized, have a good liquidity. I want to expand my shareholder base. You need to answer yourself that question. I think most companies that want to be listed is because they want to move to the next stage. I think in every entrepreneur, in every business person, there is a need to test yourself all the time. You reach this level, I want to go to the next level. And once you reach that level, you want to go to the next one. We all want to become Steve Jobs if you're an engineer. You all want to become, I don't know, whatever is your leader, your your ideal of a business person in your different sectors. But you always want to reach the next stage. I think to be listed, it means that your business has just become mature, has just become, something that needs to be recognized by the market. You need that recognition. I think in most cases, what drives an entrepreneur to move to the next stage is probably recognition, status, and I would say also to prove yourself. I think it's important that you keep testing yourself. How far can I go? Can I go to the next level? Can I go further than that? I think that's also a good driver. I think most entrepreneurs that I've met in my life have wanted to test themselves to the extreme, And once you reach that objective, you set up another one and another one and another one. And it's always about growth. It's always about, of course, there's a lot to say about not forgetting where you're coming from, not forgetting the team, not forgetting, your objectives, your mission. I think it's important that you have very clear in your mind what you're trying to aim at or for. Why do I want to get there? Why? And to be able to answer yourself objectively and sincerely that it's something that you need to do it and that you want to do it. I think the worst thing that can happen is that someone convinces you that, let's do a crowdfunding round. What for? Do I need to do a crowdfunding round? Do I need to get listed? You have to answer, as an entrepreneur, you have to answer your questions before you actually present them to the rest of your team and your colleagues.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there any question? Last question?
If a startup dies, imagine that it has been financed but it hasn't been able to change in those critical moments you said, and finally it dies. What does happen?
What does it happen?
With the equity and
from what angle? If you're talking about from the angle of the investor, I would try to sell my shares for €1 before you actually close the company, so that I can do some tax returns and at least recover my losses in some other ways. From the point of the entrepreneur, I would ask you to the obvious one, learn from your mistakes. Okay, I've learned a lot in my life myself, so I hate learning at that stage. Seriously, I just hate it. I would say try to find ways out before you reach that stage. I've seen a lot of cases where a company is bound to die eventually because 10 different reasons, and you sit down with the entrepreneur and you say, why don't you sell your company? You can still sell it, and the entrepreneur normally is like, what, sell this? I've spent 5 years here or 3 years and €500,000. So why should I sell it? I said, well, you either sell it or you lose it. Last deal I've been involved with around this topic, the company was about to go bust in December this year, and they had good IP, intellectual property. They had a well-protected IP. They managed to sell the IP, and like I said, the company was busted. They didn't have any money to move forward. The team was just getting disbanded. Everybody had given up, basically, and they came across an opportunity. The CEO was very active. He realized that, this is it. We're not going to go any further than this. And he started searching for a company that could acquire their IP. Eventually, he found a British company that actually acquired the IP, and this happened about a month and a half ago. And they paid them €4 million just for the IP. So, again, we haven't talked about that. We could be talking about the different critical issues, things, ideas that you need to address when you are an entrepreneur. One of the things is, for example, protecting your IP. If you're a technical company, technological company, you need to protect your IP. It costs money. Investors are happy to put money behind protecting your IP because it's your main asset. And companies like this one I'm telling you guys about actually managed to recover, I wouldn't say all the money, but managed to recover most of the money thanks to the IP they sold at the last minute. But to answer finally your question, you need to be very open with your shareholders, with your team, and decide that if this project has no more room to go, you need to decide what to do with it. And you need to give a way out to everybody, to the investors. Okay, sell for your shares for €1, at least make some tax savings on that. To your team, start looking for something else. The worst thing that you can do is just close the door one day, Oh, I've decided that that's it, I've had enough. I wouldn't say they're going to shoot you on the streets, but probably they should, because you're playing with everybody's lives. And you have to, as an entrepreneur, as a startup founder, you want to be around a long time. You don't want to be around just for a few years or for a few months. And the best way to ensure that you're going to be around for a long time and that people are going to respect you even though you fail 1 or 10 times is that you actually do so being transparent with everybody. Okay? And if you can't pay because you haven't got any money, say so. Don't tell people that I'll pay you next month. And if you can't hang on to so-and-so because you cannot pay his or her salary, just say so. The worst thing you can do is lie to your investors, lie to your colleagues, and lie to the market. Because you as the founder are going to be blamed for that. And you're going to take that with you wherever you go. So be transparent and tell people what's going on. I think that would be my best recommendation.
Probably is the best way to close this session. To be transparent, to be trust that there's going to
trustworthy is what you need to be all the time. Very trustworthy.
Yes, it's the best reflection of this session. I would like to ask applause for Ernesto.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
In the next minutes, I believe that you will have this session in YouTube, so
Very good.
You come back to watch it. And well, thank you for coming and your contributions, Ernesto.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Welcome.